I remember when I was relatively new, probably had been there less than 6 months at Mercy, and there was a call into the anesthesia lounge that they needed anesthesia stat up to the ICU. And they had sedated a patient to do a procedure on her, and they had lost her airway, and she was struggling to breathe. And so I remember two of my more senior male colleagues and I ran up because we were done with our cases. And, your classic 10 people around the bedside. And the first male colleague looked into her airway to see if he could put an endotracheal tube in to secure her breathing. He couldn't see anything. The second colleague looked, and the patient was struggling to breathe. She was sedated, heavily sedated, and she was just kind of gasping to breathe. And the general surgeon was standing there getting ready to put a knife in her throat to put a emergency airway in. And I remember looking at the nurse, and I said, "Get me some nasal spray." And she's like, "What for?" I'm like, just give me some nasal spray." And she brought it to me. I said, "Hold on 1 second." And I put the tube through her nose. The nasal spray was to decrease the blood vessels in the nose. And I put the tube to the nose, and the patient was truly struggling to breathe. And I just advanced it a little bit, and she just sucked it in, and I, secured the airway without them having to go through the neck and whatnot. And I remember everybody just kind of looking around. They're like, what, you just did? And I'm like, you know what? Barnes in the middle of the night, you're training, you're like the only one there. I'm like, the nasal airway saved you so many times when you couldn't really see what you were looking for, because when you intubate a patient, you look for the vocal cords and you're trying to put the tube through the vocal cords because it leads to the lungs. But a lot of times, if they're obese and they have a lot of tissue and you can't see where you're going, and nowadays we have a lot of fiber optic instruments, but back in those days, it's pretty limited. So I was like, guys, when you're alone at 3 a.m. and you're losing the airway, you go for the nose, and you just, and so that was my, everybody was like, dang, that was impressive. I was like, okay, I'll take it once, and that was it. And I mean, the surgeon was just standing there getting ready to cut her neck, just to secure her air that way. And I remember thinking, all right, I think they think I'm okay. Like, I'm decent. Like, I literally saved that patient's airway. So I do remember feeling really good about it, thinking, okay, I can hang with these guys.